It's 2025, and you can feel it. Something is fundamentally wrong with the United States. Depending on which corner of the internet you live in, the answer changes. One side says it's the economy. Fix the numbers and the soul of the country returns. Another says it's immigration. Others argue America simply broke itself trying to police the world. Then you have the deeper theories, the government, the CIA, or the shadowy institutions pulling the strings from the basement of history. What if the real issue isn't a policy, a person, or a border? What if it's something quieter, deeper, and hiding in plain sight? A strange sociology term most people have never heard of: anomie. Once you understand anomie, you start seeing it everywhere. But what is anomie? Anomie is a transitional state where old norms no longer hold, but new ones have not yet evolved to take their place. To truly grasp the concept of anomie and its impact, we must first understand a foundational family model that has anchored diverse cultures throughout history. In this traditional view, the roles of men and women function like a high-stakes partnership where two distinct sets of responsibilities create a stable whole. It's a delicate balance of outward and inward strength. The man acts as a provider and protector, which is a functional necessity because if he doesn't provide, there is no food on the table. And if he doesn't protect, the family is physically and spiritually vulnerable. If we remove these responsibilities from the man without a clear replacement, we face a crisis where the family unit loses its security, creating anomie, a state of social chaos where old norms no longer hold. But new ones haven't evolved to take their place. Complementing this, the woman acts as the nurturer and the manager, fostering emotional connections and transforming raw resources into a dignified, orderly home. If we take these roles away from the woman without a functional alternative, the heart of the family stops beating. The household might have resources, but it lacks the harmony and emotional growth needed to thrive, resulting again in anomie as the internal fabric of society begins to unravel. Neither role is grander than the other. They are two halves of one team where the man provides a framework and the woman provides a harmony. These roles have historically kept society stable and healthy, and while we can choose to evolve and change the fabric of our society, we cannot simply get rid of these functions because we can't afford to. If we dismantle these traditional pillars, the replacement must be equally efficient, if not better. Because if we change things recklessly without a plan, society will bear the consequences. The state will struggle, and that punch will eventually reach every one of us. To prevent the collapse of the social order, every role removed must be a role replaced. This risk of anomie isn't contained only within the family picture. It happens on every societal level. Every person in society has a vital role: the sheriff, the judge, the senator. And when these roles are shifted or removed, the replacement must be sound or the entire system falters. For example, many argue that American anomie began after World War II through institutional anomie. Anomie is like cancer. It breeds, it multiplies. I'll show you how the institutional anomie created by the government multiplied into family, sex, and different types of anomies. And if we left them unchecked, they will, without doubt, collapse our country, like it collapsed empires throughout history. To understand America's anomie, we need to start in the 1950s.
Industry on parade. A pictorial review of events in business and industry.
The 1950s in America, they were a triumph. The war was over. The U.S. stood alone. Global powerhouse. We'd added tons of prosperity in this country. Enough for everyone. A middle-income factory worker earned the equivalent of $40,000 a year. Enough for a decent home. Priced below $100,000 in today's dollars. The government helped pay for much of this, supported by extremely high tax rates on the rich. One income supported the entire family. Communities valued stability above all. The family structure was rigid, predictable. The father provided. The mother nurtured. The American dream felt real and secure. Beneath that surface of post-war prosperity, America was undergoing a quiet but massive cultural rewiring. As a nation expanded into a global empire, the creation of the CIA in 1947 signaled a shift. a shift toward secret, often illegal, operations. The first anomie had emerged. From this point onwards, everything changed. This set the stage for the 1960s, a decade where almost every major event seemed designed to trigger anomie. The 1960s hit the American psyche from every direction. It started with political violence. The assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King Jr. shattered the idea of a stable, safe leadership. Regardless of the hope these men represented, their deaths left a void. But then, the stability we took for granted simply evaporated. Then there was the Vietnam War.
This is Pleiku, 250 miles north of Saigon, the air base that was ripped by Vietnamese communist guerrillas. 8 Americans died in the attack that brought swift retaliation by U.S. and South Vietnamese forces from carriers and land bases.
Scandals like the My Lai massacre and the Tet Offensive turned the public against the government. It made the system look both incompetent and immoral, although the nation was told we were winning. The footage told us we were losing our souls. In contrast to the greatest generation of the 40s, the public saw a government that had lost its way. Nevertheless, the draft kept calling. The counterculture and hippie movement followed.
The establishment. The hippies, perhaps more than any other social phenomenon, brought the drug issue to the surface. For most of them are children of middle-class and upper-class families.
The counterculture was caused because society in the 60s lost all trust in government. The institutional anomie that started after the creation of the CIA gave birth to the counterculture. The counterculture and hippie movement completely dismantled the role of the father, creating the father role anomie. Let me show you how. A massive generation of young people explicitly rejected the establishment. They traded traditional suits and short hair for a lifestyle that prioritized personal freedom over civic duty. This signaled a total divorce from the principal man ideal of their fathers. Whereas the older generation valued the collective, the youth valued the self. On the other hand, the father saw this as total betrayal. Instead of following the old script, the youth burned it. The drug revolution wasn't just about partying. Nonetheless, that's how many saw it.
The hippie community smokes marijuana, whether they call it pot, grass, hemp, gauge, joint, or Mary Jane. The marijuana is the basic background for the shared drug experience.
The widespread use of psychedelics and marijuana was a tool used to tune in and drop out. This further eroded institutional control. Despite the risks, millions of citizens began seeking truth through substances. Alternatively, they could have looked to the church, the state, or the family. But then, they didn't trust those anymore. Conversely, they looked inward to find a reality the system couldn't provide.
Guru or Swami, they band together in communes, attempting to live a Thoreau-like existence.
Americans have become increasingly skeptical of strong, principled leaders, not because they've lost their values, but then because their trust has been shattered. A decade of institutional scandals, intense political division, the perception that politicians prioritize personal power over public service. All of it fueled a deep sense of cynicism. Since people stopped trusting their leaders and institutions, the culture was ready to start questioning anyone who seemed like a traditional authority figure. Hollywood and the media exacerbated things. People deeply disagree about Hollywood's true intentions. Some argue there's an intentional effort to mock father figures, to weaken society, to make it easier to control. The theory? Without strong men, there is no strong opposition. On the other hand, others contend that Hollywood simply reflects an existing distrust of strong, principled men. Men who claim to protect society, but often did the exact opposite. Regardless of where the truth lies, one thing is clear. The media and Hollywood have become culture-shaping instruments, unlike anything the world has ever seen. Movies have become powerful enough not just to entertain, but to rewrite culture and fundamentally influence society. In this view, Hollywood exacerbated the existing tensions between institutions, strongmen, and the public. Millions of women enter the workforce in a single decade, fueled by the second wave of feminism and the need for survival. This massive societal shift created an immediate and profound crisis. The traditional female role, the primary love provider and the anchor of identity, dissolved almost overnight. Yet, society offered no new, stable role to take its place. The conversation shouldn't just be whether feminism is good or bad, but also what should occupy the vacuum left behind when the role of the mother is removed. Societal roles like nurturer and provider are the two equal foundations of society, one not grander than the other. And when you remove one from the equation, both lose. This is the anomie that emerged, a sudden instability where mothers are torn between work and home, fathers lose their defining purpose, and children adjust to less parental presence. The old script is gone, and the new one hasn't evolved enough to take its place. That is the definition of anomie. The consequences are visible not only in families, but on a national scale, as American population growth began to decrease around this time, leading to a society relying on outside labor. The rise of the suburbs, the entry of more women into the workforce. It created a demand for convenient, time-saving meals, like the TV dinner. This paved the road for health decline. Obesity, only 5.8% in the 50s. 13% in the 1960s. It began its relentless climb to 15% in the 70s. Fast food spread across suburbs. Ultra-processed foods dominated dinner tables. By the late 70s, the obesity epidemic was no longer a warning. It was a trend line. We can debate whether the societal values of 1950s America were perfect or flawed. That argument will never end. But then one thing is undeniable. Everyone in society had a job, a role, a responsibility. And those roles, right or wrong, held the society together. They produced stability, cohesion, a sense of meaning. It ran through every layer of American life. Here's the problem. If you want to change societal values, you cannot simply tear them down. You must replace them with something equally strong. Something capable of holding the entire system together. But America didn't replace. America eroded, and the replacements that did emerge, some people accepted them, some rejected them. A divided society can't build strong shared values. When everyone shares the same values, even the government has no choice but to follow them. But when values are scattered and inconsistent, politicians exploit the differences to grab power. That's exactly what happened in America, and we did nothing. So the vacuum grew. When a society leaves its core responsibilities unattended, the society collapses. And when the society collapses, the empire collapses with it. Always, without exception. Drug use and the thrill of rebellion felt exciting to the youth of the 1960s and 1970s. But then it carried a hidden cost, a rapidly declining men productivity. In the 1950s, American productivity sat above 86%, a historic high. As the counterculture spread in the 60s, it slipped to 83%. By the 1970s, it dropped again, 79 to 80%. And here's the twist. The economy wasn't collapsing. Prosperity was higher than ever. Factories were running. Wages were rising. Opportunities were everywhere. So if the economy was strong, why were Americans becoming less productive? Because productivity doesn't just fall when machines break. It falls when people break. A generation of children was raised. The father figure, the anchor of discipline, stability, and moral direction, was being culturally weakened and mocked. Instead of promoting the principled, responsible father, American media began promoting his decline. When the father's role gets eroded, the structure around him erodes too. That's where the next anomie emerged. Sexual anomie. In 1969, films once unthinkable for public viewing suddenly became box office sensations. Pornography didn't just enter the mainstream, it became mainstream. By the early 1970s, America had fully entered the golden age of porn, a cultural earthquake. It redefined intimacy, distorted expectations, detached sexuality from commitment. A Christian nation that once sanctified marriage and family now mass-produced lust as entertainment. In this new landscape, relationships shifted, trust eroded, expectations widened, commitment weakened. The productive duty-driven society of the 1950s had transformed into a pleasure-driven, directionless society, prosperous on the outside, fractured on the inside. By the 1970s, the roles of men and women are unclear. Morality is dissolving. Drugs and pornography reshape behavior. Food and lifestyle erode health. Hollywood and the media create culture. The institutions that once held society together, family, faith, community, purpose, lose their cultural authority. The collapse had begun. America wasn't losing its strength from external enemies. Conversely, it was dissolving from internal enemies. One pillar at a time. Let's see how the institutional enemies from the 60s and 70s matured in the 80s and 90s. The 1980s and 1990s became the era where the government stopped standing for its people. Tax cuts for the wealthy, deregulation for corporations, reduced social programs, weakened unions. A system designed to lift citizens slowly transformed into one that lifted only the elite. The economy was booming. Nevertheless, it's not shared prosperity. The famous productivity pay gap opens. CEO pay explodes. From 25 times the average worker in the 1970s to nearly 400 times by the end of the 1990s. Only 60% of people born in the 1970s earn more than their parents. The American dream, once the cornerstone of U.S. identity, begins to slip from reach. While inequality skyrockets, another quiet crisis grows. Health decline. Obesity shot up from 23% in the 1980s to nearly 31% by 2000. The cheap, subsidized, ultra-processed food engineered in the 70s became the default diet. But then, the biggest shift wasn't economic or nutritional. It was geopolitical. The Cold War ends. The Soviet Union collapses. America becomes the world's sole superpower. And instead of turning inward to repair its deteriorating foundations, the U.S. turns outward. A new doctrine emerges, the New World Order. President George H.W. Bush declared openly in 1990.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
The era of unchallenged American dominance, a promise of global leadership. But here's the conflict. A nation suffering from internal enemy began exporting its values abroad. The U.S. exported its media, its culture, its new morality, its newly marketized individualism, and its fractures. As strong, principled men disappeared from American leadership, America began reshaping the world with weak, inconsistent, and commercialized values. Values not even its own citizens fully believed in. And just as the nation struggled to redefine identity, community, and belonging, another force arrived: the internet, the final blow to traditional pillars. Now let's fast forward to now, in 2025. The economy has grown massively for more than 70 years. Yet, prosperity has not been shared. Most gains rose straight to the top. The wealthiest 1% now hold 31% of the nation's wealth. The average worker's wage barely moves. Productivity for men sinks towards 68 to 69%, even as prime-age men still push near 89%. The American dream, the idea that each generation would rise higher than the last, has faded so far. It feels like a myth. The system isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed, by the wealthy, for the wealthy. And while democracy gives citizens the power to push back, trust in government has collapsed. Institutions once meant to serve the public now feel distant, corrupt, captured by unelected power centers, agencies operating in the dark, billionaire interests, a Congress many believe no longer represents them. This is institutional anomie. The loss of faith in the structures meant to govern and protect. When the father's role was weakened, society never replaced it, never found a new stabilizing script. Today, that missing anchor ripples across generations. Marriage rates fall. Only 49% of U.S. adult women are married, down from two-thirds a few decades earlier. Married couple households shrink to 47%, while the median age of first marriage rises to nearly 29. Men and women form families later, less often and with less stability. The old roles collapsed, but new ones never fully emerged. This is gender role anomie, a society where men and women inherit no clear expectations, only competing narratives and constant conflict. The consequences appear everywhere. Health declines. Adult obesity hovers around 40%, with severe obesity rising sharply. Pornography becomes a national coping mechanism. 40 million Americans visit porn sites regularly. 69% of men and 40% of women watch porn yearly, and 11% of all adults consume it daily. Young adults become the heaviest users. This is sexual anomie. Intimacy replaced with digital stimulation, connection replaced with consumption. At the same time, the digital world births a new disorder, social anomie. Social media rewires interaction itself. As Mike Tyson warned, social media has made you far too comfortable disrespecting people without getting punched in the face for it. Consequences disappear. Responsibility evaporates. Identity becomes hyperfragmented. Generation Z is the final product of this collapse, born entirely inside the broken blueprint. They don't rebel. They re-tribalize. Their loyalty is to digital tribes, curated by algorithms. Morality is outsourced to group consensus. The tribe decides. The individual obeys. This is moral anomie, a society where conscience is crowdsourced and punishment comes from virality, not virtue. And while all of this unfolds, America carries the weight of global ambition. Since the 1990s, as the sole superpower, it has led more than a dozen foreign military operations, none threatening its homeland, all far from its borders. However, at home, the national debt balloons, inequality grows, and social cohesion dissolves. Immigration reaches 51.9 million, 15.4% of the population, expanding diversity but deepening division in a society already struggling to define itself. Meanwhile, 29% of Americans become religiously unaffiliated, not because belief vanished, but because the institutions of belief lost legitimacy. This is a cumulative cost. 70 years of unfixed anomies. The family weakened, institutions hollowed out, roles dissolved, health deteriorated. The digital world replaced the real one. The tribe replaced the nation. America did not lose its way because of enemies, or economics, or global competition. America lost its way through a slow, unattended societal decay, a chain of enemies stretching from the 1950s to 2025, each one left unrepaired, each one creating the next. This is the blueprint we inherited,